don't you think that one of the interesting aspects of the first century quote unquote church, if we can use that term, is that that people from all walks of Judaism seem to convert or come to a following of the Messiah? So for instance, in Acts 15, it says, and there were men that came down from Judea who were Pharisees, right?
Right.
And so they're still identifying as Pharisees. It seems as though Paul still identifies as a Pharisee. So is it really wrong to say that Paul might identify theologically with much of what the Pharisees say, and therefore might even see himself as a Pharisee, but the ultimate has been placed above that, which is Christ?
Right. Okay, I don't have any problem with that. Let me use an analogy. It would be like if we take, in our day, we have two terms which are very broad: conservatives and liberals. Okay? When we're talking in terms of theology, when we think of liberal theology, we think of those who are discounting the inspiration of the scriptures, maybe not all of them, but some of them would. But they're leaning in that direction. When we say conservative, we're saying those who say, no, what we have in the 66 books is the word of God and affirming inspiration and so forth and so on. Okay, so if I say I'm a conservative, that doesn't mean that I agree with every conservative, because there are conservatives that certainly have errant doctrines, and doesn't mean that I'm against every liberal, because there are liberals who have some of their doctrines right on the money. So when we're using broad terms, and I think Pharisee, in fact, you know that in the rabbinic literature, they say that there were 5 different kinds of Pharisees. And they list the different kind of schools within the broad scope of Pharisaism. So when I read the question, does this mean that Paul or that Yeshua was a Pharisee? Well, we never see him ever aligning entirely with the Pharisees. But we never see him aligning in completion with the Sadducees, obviously, because they didn't believe in the resurrection and et cetera, et cetera. They didn't believe in angels and so forth, from everything that we can tell. So what I'm saying is that the final and definite and most prominent aspect of Paul was not that he was a Pharisee. He wouldn't have told it. He'd just gone around and tell everybody, see, I'm a Pharisee. What did he tell people? He was a follower of Yeshua. He was an apostle of Yeshua. That was his primary identification. So when he says there in Acts, I'm a Pharisee, the Pharisees, he's saying, if you look at the history of my halakha, or how I follow Torah, you will see that I was very much aligned with those who wanted to follow Torah as Moses gave it. And to even go beyond that to the nth degree. So he's saying you can't say that I'm against Torah, as some might have said he was.
We have another interesting comment from Joshua in the chat room. He says, wouldn't you agree that Jesus agreed with the Pharisees more than other Judaisms? I want to take the first stab at this. I think that this is a difficult question to answer. And the reason why is because although we do know probably the most about the Pharisees and or possibly the Sadducees in that they denied the resurrection, that's the main caveat that is given about the Sadducees, we don't really know a whole lot about other groups within the first century Judaisms of the time. I mean, we know Qumran, obviously, because we have the community rule and other Qumran writings. However, I think that there were a lot more flavors, if you will, of Judaism and or theology within the first century. So to just say that he agreed most with the Pharisees only takes into account what we know of the present day, what we know of the Judaisms of the time. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking the subscribe button and check out more videos from Messiah Matters.